Hello and welcome everyone on our webinar presentation for freelance translators, where we will show you some hidden treasures and key features of MemoQ. But before doing that, let me do a quick housekeeping to tell you how it will look like. The webinar itself is recorded. You will receive the link where you can check the recordings. It will be about a 45-minute presentation. Then we will have 10-15 minutes for QA. And if there's any missed question, we will answer that and send you the Q&A sheet later for that. So don't worry, every question will be answered. For posting your questions, please use Zoom's Q&A function on the Zoom panel. There we can see all the questions together, and it's much easier for both of us to check it. Now let me introduce our presenters. Santiago is one of the solution engineers at MemoQ. He will be the guide in the system today. And Santiago, if you are here and can hear me, the floor is yours.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, perfectly.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, so first off, let me say that I will probably exceed the 45-minute mark. I've tried to condense everything into 45 minutes, but I'll probably have a hard time. So sorry about that. Secondly, okay, thank you everyone for being here. I'm very happy to see some familiar faces in the chat, so that's awesome. And let me tell you that this won't be a beginners or basic webinar, okay? So I expect that you have at least some basic knowledge of MemoQ or any other CAD tool. If you don't have any basic knowledge after watching this, make sure that you go to YouTube or to memoq.com and you look for a MemoQ beginner webinar. There are many. There's even one delivered by myself in Spanish, so you can watch that later and you will most likely understand this webinar a little bit better. However, this won't be a very advanced one either, okay? So if you're a mega power user of MemoQ, you will probably know some of the features that I'll be displaying and showing today, but hopefully everyone will learn something, okay? Another thing I wanted to say is that I won't be going into detail, okay, regarding every feature that I'll be showing today. My idea is that this session is like a rapid fire, display of some of the features I use a lot, but I'm trying to encourage you to do your own research and tests after the webinar, okay? So I won't be going into detail. In any case, you will be receiving the recording, so you can check the video later as well. Good. So having said that, let me get started with my presentation today. Let me share my screen. Very good. Right now, you should be watching my screen, okay? Very good. So we will start from basic to more advanced, okay? So the first couple of features that I'll be showing, if you've attended any of my previous webinars or workshops, you will realize that I keep showing these things because I love them, okay? But at the end, I'll be focusing on more advanced things. So let's start with my sample file, which is over here. And of course, we need to talk about concordance. It's one of my favorite features ever, okay? Because it's so useful. It makes to be consistent, especially if you work in a team, for example, in an agency, okay? So imagine you need to translate a term. In this case, it will be teleport. A very simple term, so please open your minds a little bit here, okay? So imagine you need to translate teleport. You can run a concordance search because the term is not in the term base. And you see this over here, okay? Many results. We have actually 77 results up here. And some are translated as teletransporte, some others are teletransportación, so you cannot really tell which is the preferred translation, okay? one little thing, I translate into Spanish. That's my native language. So my examples will be in Spanish, but that's not important at all, okay? I just want to make sure that I give you a real example because this happened to me, okay? More than once. So when you run a concordance search, which maybe you're thinking, okay, every single CAT tool has concordance search. Well, but in MemoQ, you can actually filter the target and you can realize which term is the one that the client prefers that way, okay? So if I look for teleport, then I can filter my target and write teletransportación, for example, okay? I would like to translate this as a noun. So let me run the concordance search again. And now, instead of having 77 results, I only have 20, okay? So that's my first option. Now, let's look for teletransporte, okay? Let's run the concordance search again. And now I have 46 results. So clearly, teletransporte is preferred over teletransportación. Okay, this is something that you won't be using every single day, but believe me, when you need it, it's there and it's really, really useful. So that's my #1 concordance tip, okay? The second one is case sensitive, okay? Case sensitivity, actually. So imagine, again, a really silly example, but it can happen to you, okay? Imagine you need to translate IT, okay? We all probably know how to translate IT, but again, follow this idea. You look for it and you get all of these results. Of course, you get the acronym IT, but you also get the pronoun it, sorry. So how do you make your search more accurate? Okay, you can enable the case sensitive checkbox, and I run it again. And of course, my search narrows down by a lot. And now we only get results in uppercase. Okay, so I can check how to really translate IT based on LiveDocs or the translation memory. Good. So that would be my suggestion #2. I know maybe I'm going a bit fast, but I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. And again, let me repeat myself. You'll receive the recording. You'll be able to rewatch this whole webinar and try the things out yourself, okay? So that would be my second suggestion, okay? Be aware of case sensitivity when doing concordance searches. #3 is one of my favorites. So imagine that I now need to look up wooden shield, okay? The IT crowd, Caro, nice to see you here. Amazing TV show if you haven't watched it. So wooden shield, imagine we need to look this up, okay? So I will run a concordance search with Control-K, or again, you can press this button on the upper left corner of the screen. And let's see what's happening here. I get 5 results. However, when you look up words in MemoQ without any kind of symbol, what you're actually doing is telling MemoQ that you want to see every single segment in which both words appear. It doesn't matter if they are together or separate, okay? It doesn't matter at all. This could be useful in some contexts, but it can be annoying in some others. So as you can see here, of course, we get 2 good results, okay, at first, but then we get 3 more results that are not actually useful. So in this case, have a look at these results. This wooden armor won't shield me from their attacks. So this is not wooden shield, not useful at all. It's just bothering my view. What I can do now is put the selected text in quotes, okay? This is a super useful feature. It will narrow down your search. It works just like in Google. Yeah, when you Google something and you put it between quotation marks, it will narrow down your search to that phrase specifically. So let me run the concordance search again, and boom, suddenly my results are only 2, okay? And they are very specific. Wooden shield, nothing else. One thing I didn't mention is that maybe my concordance window looks a bit different from yours, and that can be due to 2 reasons. #1, I don't really like using the 3-column view. I use the source and target view. Yeah, this is how I feel more comfortable. And second, I just updated to MemoQ 9.12. So that changes the UI a little bit, okay? But the functionality is exactly the same. Okay, going back to Wooden Shield, I put the selected text in quotes and it narrowed down my search. What I can also do is add wildcards. Wildcards are these asterisks that I have at the end of each word, and they are super useful. Again, they work just as in Google. So when I click on concordance again, have a look at this. Now I have 6 results, and that's because I'm also getting plural forms, okay, which I didn't get before. So they are all valid results. Now I can really see how to translate Wooden Shield. So my suggestion is to usually keep these checked, okay, because they are usually useful, unless you want to have more results that are less precise, okay? Good. Now let's have a look at my final tip regarding concordance and its numeric equivalence. Let's search for this. And this feature actually changed names in MemoQ 9.12. Now it's called Find Different Numbers Too, okay? It used to be called numeric equivalence, but I guess that many people didn't really understand what it did, so they changed the name. And this is actually very useful. Let me show you why. So when I look for 5 gold, okay, between quotation marks, actually, I get exactly that. The results that MemoQ finds are 5 gold twice, nothing else. I can actually even look for numbers. This is something that doesn't really work well in other tools, but you can do that in MemoQ. So when I look for 5 gold, I only get that result. But when I check this option, numeric equivalence or find different numbers, look what happens. I get more results because MemoQ treats the number as a placeholder, basically. So it doesn't really matter what number MemoQ is looking for. It just looks for a number plus the word gold, okay? So this can be very useful to look for expressions that have number in them, okay? So those are my tips and tricks regarding concordance searches. Again, this can be basic for some, this can be advanced for others if you've never used MemoQ. But as I was telling you, I won't explain how to use concordance. This is just some advanced tips for those who already use concordance. Please, if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the Q&A pane, and I will try to answer as many as possible. And right now, let's move on to AutoPick, another feature that I use a lot, and I try to make people use it because I love it, okay? So AutoPick is basically a feature that gets enabled when you press Control only once. So I press Control and I get a result like that, okay? So AutoPick basically recognizes certain elements in the source to speed things up for you, okay? And to also help you avoid mistakes, yeah, typing mistakes. So in this case, I'm showing you how AutoPick recognizes numbers. So when I press Control, I get this pop-up window and the number 10. Then I can just press Enter, and I will get the number included in my translation, okay? Good. Let's move on to the next number. Oh, let me change something. Next number, we have 1,000 in English with a comma separating the thousands, okay? In Spanish, we don't need that. So when I press Control, based on my AutoPick settings, the comma is just removed, okay? So I just get 1,000 with no commas at all. Good. Let's move on to the next number, 10,000. We have a comma in English. We need either a period or an unbreaking space, sorry, in Spanish. And that's what we get here, Let me remove this. I press Control, I get the number, okay? Again, this may seem a little bit silly for some, but imagine when you're typing a lot and writing paragraphs and you have lots of numbers, it's super easy to just press Control whenever you need to insert the numbers. I translate video games. Apart from working at MemoQ, I get lots of numbers. So this is super, super useful, okay? Let's press Control again. And of course, the decimal period gets replaced with a decimal comma, okay? So moving on, let's press Control again. Same thing. The comma gets removed because we don't need that. The period gets replaced with a comma, okay? So this can be set up depending on your language needs, okay? Of course, I'm working with Spanish, so this is how I set it up. But according to your language, maybe you will need to change these settings a little bit. In this case, we have 1,000,000, and then we have a couple of decimals. So, of course, MemoQ managed to adapt the number completely. So, numbers they work really great with AutoPick. Let's see what happens with tags. Again, maybe you work in a field that doesn't really have lots of tags. Okay, in video game localization, you have many, many tags. So another good thing is that you can auto-pick tags as well. So let's see. Esta es una oración de. Now I'll press Control only once. I get my first tag. Press Enter. Ejemplo. Press Control again. Get my second tag. Enter and period. Okay. Also, having auto-pick enabled just by pressing Control is really convenient, yeah, because your pinky finger is always there on top of Control. So it's super fast to enable and super useful. Again, as you can see, if you haven't updated to MemoQ 9.12, you will realize that your tags, if you choose the small option, won't have any numbers, okay? This is a new feature. Again, I'm super grateful because for games, it's very, very useful, okay? Let's see what else AutoPick can recognize and email addresses, okay? If you press Control, you just get the email address. Super fast way of writing email addresses. You reduce, yeah, the chances of making mistakes, so it's super good. By the way, this is my real email address, so if you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to reach out, okay? What else can we pick up? URLs, okay, links. Again, this makes things quite faster, so why not use it? You just press Control and you get the URL. Actually, it will also pick up acronyms. In this case, the acronym is URL. I know this feature, this particular feature may not be super useful, okay, because we sometimes, actually lots of times, translate acronyms, but not always. It depends on the language, I guess. So it's good that you know that you can press Control and you will get acronyms included in your target language. If you don't want that, you can just turn it off. I'll show you how in a minute, okay? AutoPick can also recognize terms, yeah? So if I press Control, you will see that I get 2 terms right here, 2 translations. Of course, you can also write the first letter of the term. This will be like the regular way of including terms in your translation. But hey, I'm just showing you an alternative to that, okay? Because some people really like that. So we can say autoselección también puede reconocer. I press Control again, I get my term, I press Enter, and that's it, okay? So it basically depends on whatever you like, okay, how you work. The idea is to speed things up. Let's see. Another nice thing is that it will recognize terms within tags. So if I press Control, you will see that I get both the term and the tag, okay? So both things are like clustered together, and you can save some time by doing this instead of adding the tag first, then the term, then the second tag, okay? So pretty useful in my opinion. And this last example actually came up in one of the suggestions that colleagues made to me, because in order to prepare this webinar, I not only thought of my own favorite features, but I also asked some of my dear colleagues which features they liked most about MemoQ. So they helped me filling in a survey and they shared some ideas, okay? So I took some of those ideas and put them here in this webinar. So thanks a lot to those colleagues, they rock, and they suggested lots of things. Apparently they really like MemoQ, but I needed to narrow down the suggestions to 5 only. So this is why I couldn't include everyone's suggestions. But what we have here in green, this may not be very common. In fact, maybe you didn't see any green results in your MemoQ workflow before, but those are auto translation rules, and they are pretty amazing. I've been learning about auto translation rules and testing them since I saw Marek Pavelek's presentation in MemoQ Fest, and it was pretty amazing. So what I did here is create 2 auto translation rules that help me translate dates and times. So whenever I press Control, I get also the auto translation rules, okay? Of course, I will also get numbers on their own, but I also get the full auto translation results. And as you can see, this is pretty amazing in my opinion. What I did here is create a rule that just translates this this date, okay? So it keeps the number, it translates August and adds a preposition. And in the case of the time, what I did was just change the formatting a little bit. So I added non-breaking spaces, okay, instead of regular spaces. And I also separated PM, yeah, in Spanish, that should be separated. So that's basically what I did. Again, if you know nothing about auto translation rules, let us know. Maybe we can have another webinar in the future, because I don't think many people use them, and they are pretty useful in my opinion, especially if you deal with texts that have lots of numbers, lots of like expressions that follow a very clear pattern. However, you should take into account that they are pretty advanced. I mean, you need to know regular expressions to be able to create some good rules, and we will talk about regex at the end of this webinar. So I can see there are some questions. Okay, I'll try to answer them at the end of the presentation so that I don't get distracted. And I see that some of you are asking about auto translation rules. So yeah, we'll leave them for the end. Now, let's talk about terminology a little bit. First of all, as you can see here, in these 2 segments that I have on the left, I have 2 working term bases, and I'm getting results on the right from both of them. Okay, so that's number 1. Some people think that you can only work with 1 TM and 1 TB. No, you can have many at the same time. And let me show you my setup for a minute. If I go to Project Home and then I click on term bases on the left, you will see that I have 3 term bases enabled. Okay, term base 2, then I have this one that is called T-Webinar, and then I have term base 1. Okay. The first thing that you will notice is that they have a ranking, okay? They are ranked. What this means is that MemoQ will prioritize, of course, those term bases that are higher in the ranking. So it will show ranking 1 first, ranking 2 second, ranking 3 third. Okay, so if you have the same term in different term bases, it will prioritize ranking number 1. That's one thing. You can change the ranking using these 2 buttons up here. So that's one thing. And then you will realize that term base 2 actually is in bold font. Okay, the others are not. Okay, this means that term base 2 was set as the target for new terms, okay, this bottom up here. And this means that new terms that are added with the quick add term will actually go to term base number 2. In case you're not familiar with terminology in MemoQ, first let me tell you it's quite easy and convenient to use. And you have 2 options to add terms in your terminology, in your term base, sorry. You can use the regular add term or Control E, and you can also use quick add term, which basically just adds to the term base whatever you've selected in your source and target, okay? So if you do that, the term will go to term base number 2, okay? Because that's the one that I selected. I can change this, okay? I can change it to TWebinar, set as target for new terms, and now it changed, okay? So that's one thing. But then some people don't know that you can choose which glossary you want to use when you add terms with the regular bottom as well. So let me click on this. I will try to add a new term. And you can just add anything here like test, prueba. And up here, you can choose the term base or term bases that you want to add this term to, okay? So if I wanted to have the term in every single glossary, I can just select the 3 of them, okay? Or just remove one, just click on OK, and bam, the term is now added in 2 glossaries instead of the default one, okay? So that's one thing. Okay, second thing, I wanna talk a little bit about false positives, because I know that some people have to deal with false positives a lot, and I suffer them a little bit. And this is something that happens with every CAD tool out there. Okay, this is not just a MemoQ thing. And it's good actually that you have false positives, because that means that the quality assurance checks are actually working. Okay. But I understand that they can be annoying at times. So I will give you three suggestions in which you can avoid false positives. Okay. Let's see. So, well, just so that everyone understands, quality assurance is an option that you have in MemoQ that basically checks that some things are correct or wrong, okay? It's not a spell checker, it's more advanced than that. And one of those checks is actually making sure that you're using the right terminology based on your term basis, okay? However, sometimes you will have warnings or errors that are not actually correct. So that is a false positive. Let me show you. If I write falsos positivos, in this case, I'm getting a warning here, okay? Let me open this up, and it says the source term false positive is missing from the target. Possible terms, falso positivo. If you don't know Spanish, the problem here is that I wrote my translation in plural form, while the entry that I have in my glossary is in singular form, okay? So MemoQ doesn't know that that is actually a correct term, okay? So we can do a couple of things to overcome this. Number one, which is not really great, but I'll just give you this option, is to disable terminology checks from QA, completely. So if you go to your project home and you go to term basis, you can see this QA checkbox here. You can just disable that if you don't want MemoQ to check terminology. Let's go back now to MemoQ. Let's confirm this segment once again. And as you can see, the warning just disappeared, okay? That's one thing. There's a problem with this, okay? Well, the first problem is that it won't check any kind of terminology. So if you want to check some terms, they will just get ignored. And it will also ignore forbidden terms, okay? So in case you didn't know, you can have forbidden terms in MemoQ. Like imagine you have 2 translations for one same source term, like in teleport, you can have teletransportación and teletransporte. Maybe you want to tell your translators or yourself, because maybe you forget that teletransportación is a forbidden term. You don't want to use that. So you can add a forbidden term in your term base, but if you disable QA, then it won't really work, okay? Because if you happen to use it by mistake, MemoQ won't warn you about that. However, what I usually do when I am fed up with false positives and I just disable QA is have a whole different term base just for forbidden terms, and I only enable QA for that. Okay, this is something that I started using lately sometimes, and it works. So right now I'm getting a translation results that is actually a forbidden term, and if I still write the term, let's hope this works. Okay, I'm getting a warning. I'm actually receiving the warning that says that the forbidden term has been used. Okay, good. So that's one thing. Another thing you can do to avoid false positives is using fuzzy matching. But first, let me enable my QA settings once again. So let's write falsos positivos in plural form. I'm getting a warning, of course, but let me show you something. I'll edit this term that I have, this result. I'm clicking on the little pencil icon. And what I can do, and this is something I usually do by default with Spanish from now on, is changing the matching from 50% prefix to fuzzy, okay? This change, let me click on OK and confirm the segment once again. This change actually removed the false positive, okay? And let me explain very briefly what this does. So 50% prefix is the default value that MemoQ uses for terminology. And what it means is that the translation that I'm using needs to match at least by 50% with the translation that I have in my glossary, okay? However, this is just prefix. So it means that the first part of the term should match. So if, like in this case, I have a multi-word term and I need to add a plural form after the first word, then the 50% prefix matching won't really help, okay? It will help with single word terms. And in fact, let me show you, if I change this to 50% prefix once again, and I remove the first S that I have here, I still don't get any warnings. And in fact, I can write some more letters after the whole term that I have in my glossary, and I still don't get any warnings, okay? So that's how it works. On the contrary, when you use fuzzy matching, this is a little bit like a fuzzy match from the translation memory, okay? So it's MemoQ is just checking that part of the text of the term matches the translation that I have in my glossary, okay? So if I write a couple more extra, extra characters, well, I'm still getting a warning now because I exceeded like the threshold that MemoQ uses to check the fuzzy status. But let me try to remove one. Let's see. Okay. So right now I'm still getting a valid hit, a valid translation. Okay. As I was saying, I use this as default for Spanish. Maybe it will work for your language as well. Maybe it won't. I don't really know, but you should give it a try. If you want to change the defaults, you can just go to Project Home, to your term base, just right-click on the term base that you want to edit, go to Properties, and you can use the new term defaults down here, okay? You can change both languages or whatever languages that you have and change Spanish, for instance, into fuzzy. So if you have a multilingual glossary and you want this with some languages, but not with every single language, you can do that as well, okay? So in my opinion, this is pretty useful, and it helped me avoid many false positives, okay? Daniela, yeah, the record will be sent later, so don't worry about that. If I'm going a bit too fast, you will be able to rewatch the whole thing. So fuzzy matching, in my opinion, is one of the most useful ways of avoiding false positives, at least in languages like Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, probably, but give it a try with your own, okay? Good. Let's go to asterisks now. This is another nice way of avoiding false positives, but in my opinion, it can be a bit cumbersome. And let me show you why. So if I write the word falsos positivos, I could edit this term base. And what I'm going to do is go back. No, I'm just going to add the asterisk. Asterisks in term base work just like they do in concordance searches, okay? They are wildcards. So if I edit this and I just add asterisk at the end of each word, MemoQ will just check the word up to that point, okay? And then it will stop checking. So I can have falsos positivos, this will work, but I can also have something like this, okay? I'm just writing anything here, and it will still be considered correct because falso positivo is there, okay? Maybe this could be useful for languages that have really long parts, you know, after the root of the word or of the term. So it could be useful for that. But of course, it is very it gives you a lot of freedom. So you have to be a bit careful with that. And finally, we can use the pipe as well. The pipe is very useful for terms that share one single root, but then have very different endings. So I'm using teleport as an example here. The word teleport in Spanish, depending on the number, on the gender, on whether it's a verb, okay, and the conjugation, it can have many different endings. So we can have teletransporte, teletransportación, teletransportó, teletransportarse, etc., etc. Okay, lots of options. So if I just add teleport with the default settings into my term base and I translate it as, I don't know, let's say teletransportar, yeah, the verb, of course, I will start getting false positives, yeah? So for those kinds of cases, I could use the pipe, yeah? The pipe, in case you don't know, is this symbol, okay? The vertical bar. People, if you have some questions, please write them in the Q&A pane so that I can store them all there and I can reply at the end. Alfonso, nice to see you here. And yeah, this will be shared later, so don't worry about that. So using the pipe, basically what we're telling MemoQ is to stop checking where the pipe is. So what you can do here is write teletransport, that will be like the root of the word, then you can add a pipe, sorry, and then just the ending of one of the translations that you can have, yeah? Let me edit this. So right now, I shouldn't be getting warnings. Yeah, this is just a different warning, I'll ignore it, okay? Because MemoQ is just checking this part, okay? And it's ignoring the rest. This can be pretty useful. And what I've been doing lately as well is something different. This is just a personal suggestion. I'm not saying it will be useful for everyone. It definitely won't be useful if you work with an agency and you have lots of people translating. But if you're translating on your own, it can be pretty useful. So what I'm doing lately is just adding into the term base the root of the word. And that's it. And then I add an asterisk at the end. Okay, so in this case, I would write teletransport. Then I just keep that. And the good thing is that I can start translating, yeah, writing. And then I just press the letter. Sorry, this is coming from another term base, so it's bothering. Let me remove it. So I get the suggestion of the root. I press enter, and then I finish writing the word. Okay, So in my case, this helps me save time. Yeah, I do that. I write down just the root and then I finish the whole term. That is just one of my suggestions. I see that there are many questions. Remember, I'll be answering at the end. Good. So those were my suggestions for false positives. Now let's move on to live docs. So this part of the webinar will be more useful probably for project managers. So if you're a translator working as a project manager as well, you will probably like this, or maybe in the future you become a project manager and you could be using this a lot. So live docs. Live docs is basically a feature that MemoQ has. This is unique to MemoQ, and it's basically a corpus. Yeah, so it's like a folder in which you can just drop things. People usually use live docs just to align texts. Alignment means that you have a translation that was done without any cat tool at all. So you have a source file, you have a target file, and you can combine them, okay, in MemoQ, and that will start working as a translation memory, basically. That's like alignment in a nutshell. However, what many people don't really know is that you can fix alignments on the go. Because some people complain that aligning files is cumbersome, is time-consuming, and they are right. Yeah, it can be, but you can also fix alignments on the go when you're in MemoQ. So in this case, I'm getting a result from my alignment. You can check this because of the icon, the green icon. Yeah, that means that this is coming from an alignment. And even though this is correct, the second one has a mistake. Okay, it has a spelling mistake. So what can I do? Of course, I can just use this match and fix it here, or I can right-click on the result. I can click on Show Document, and I will be taken to the alignment itself. So right here, I can fix my mistake, or someone else's mistake, actually, and this will be basically fixed in the live doc, which, as I was saying, will just work as a translation memory. Okay, so let me see, I need to close this. Let's give it a second, and good. Now my translation is fixed. Okay. Something else, you might be wondering, okay, why is it an 85% match? If this is actually correct, it should be 100%. Well, this is something, again, that some people don't really know. But when you're aligning, you have different types of links. The green ones mean that the link is automatic. So MemoQ is actually penalizing those links. If you want to increase your match rate, what you can do is create a synchro link, yeah, or just confirm the automatic links. Yeah, let's close this and go back, and let's see if this changed anything at all. Good, now we have a 90% match and the icon is blue. Let's go back to the document and finish the alignment. Yeah, let's click here, close this, and let's see what happens now. Very good. We now have a 101%, actually, not even 100, because this is also in context. So you should keep that in mind. Something else some people don't really know is that you can add lots of file types into your live docs. For example, as you can see here, I added an SDL XLIF file. So XLIF files are bilingual files. So I know that some people use different tools for different clients. So maybe you're translating for a client in one tool, and then you could use that information in MemoQ. Of course, you could be using the translation memory. You can get that imported into MemoQ, but you can also just get the XLIF, import it in LiveDocs, and that's it. It will start working as a translation memory, okay? Because this is like an alignment, basically. You can also add images or actually any kind of file into LiveDocs. Again, as I was saying, this is more useful for project managers, okay, or enterprises that use MemoQ with a big pool of translators. When you add images or files into MemoQ, you're basically transforming LiveDocs into a kind of Dropbox, okay? It's a synchronized folder. So here I have a PNG image. If I double click on it, I just get this image, okay, opened. This can be very, very useful for context, okay? So as I was saying, I translate games. I could have a screenshot of the interface, okay, the main interface uploaded here, and every single translator that is working on the project will be able to see the screenshot, okay? Good, you can actually add any type of file, yeah? If I just click on import up here, let me find whatever I have around. Well, yeah, you can just add anything, yeah? I don't have a proper file here. Anything will work, okay? You just need to pick the last filter that you get when you are importing the file. It's called binary, and that's it. You will get the file uploaded here. And also, again, this could be useful for people that work with multilingual files, like those of us working localization. You can add previously translated files into LiveDocs as well. So this is a gaming file that is partly translated, yeah? But of course, you will have this in your memory as well. However, when you add this file into LiveDocs with right-click and just add to LiveDocs, the good thing is that it will not only work as a translation memory, but it will also keep all the context and the text flow, okay, in case that's useful for you. So as you can see, I have the translations, but I also have comments on the right, yeah? And if you have a look at the preview, which is also kept, you can see the keys, okay, the IDs, the string key, string ID, and the character limit, which can be useful to understand certain decisions that are made, okay? So if someone else has a look at this, they will say, okay, this had a restriction, so I understand why some things were left out, for example. Okay, well, those were my suggestions regarding LiveDocs. Again, I didn't go into detail. I'm just trying to encourage you to test all these features on your own and maybe do some Googling as well, because we have a very good documentation page, okay? So make sure you look those things up. We're getting into more advanced territory right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about views, okay? Not many people are familiar with views, but let me explain them in a very short time. So views are basically filters. So if you use filters, you will feel comfortable with views. But the difference between views and filters is that the views can be saved, okay? So whenever you create a view with your documents, they get stored in the views tab, okay? So you have documents and you have views. One of the most basic things that you can do with views is just glue documents. So imagine that you have a huge project with 100 files, or maybe it's not even a huge project. Maybe you have 100 files with 50 words each. What you can do is select them all, right-click on them, and then click on Create View. Yeah, so let's accept this. Right now, I will create my view number 1, and I will simply glue the documents together. Okay, you can choose as many documents as you want. Let's click on OK. And right now, we get a view with 508 words, which is, of course, the sum of 309 and 199. Okay, again, very useful for big projects with lots of files. So that's one thing. On the contrary, you can also create a view number 2, and you can split the document if it's very big. Yeah, you can split the document in rows. Unfortunately, you cannot split it based on words. That's something that you can do if you have the Project Manager edition. But right now, with your Translator Pro, you can only split it based on rows. Okay, rows are segments. So you can say, I just want to see segments from number 6 to number 10. Okay, let's click on OK. And now I got a view that only displays rows 6 to 10. Okay, I use this a lot when I have big files, to organize myself. I find it easier just to have smaller batches. So it's pretty useful. Something else you can do. Let's create a third view. You can choose to see rows that match one of these conditions. Okay, so let's say you want to see only rows that are not locked. Yeah, because maybe you have lots of locked rows. Okay, you're working with an agency. Okay, just show me those that are unlocked. Let's click on OK, and we get another view with just unlocked rows. Okay, pretty useful as well. So again, as I was saying, if you are familiar with filters, you will understand this interface. You can play with different conditions here. And let me show you two advanced options that I really like and that I've used with a client here at MemoQ, okay, gaming clients mainly. The first one is that you can create views based on source content. Okay, so you can tell MemoQ to only display the segments that have the word, let's say the word, a very silly word, the, okay, in the target, in the source text. Sorry. Of course, you can also filter by target, but that wouldn't be very useful here. So I added the word. You can add several, and let's click on OK and see what we get. Okay, we get view number 4, which of course only shows you strings that have the word the determiner in them. Everything else will just be ignored. Okay, good. Let's move on to my final suggestion regarding views. Let's go to view number 5, advanced options. And this is again something I've used with clients. And well, here you have lots of options that you can explore on your own later, but I really like the comment and tags. Okay, sometimes clients have keywords in comments, yeah, that help them filter the content based on that little word. So for example, imagine my file needs to, I need to translate only the strings that have the comment to translate. Everything else should be ignored. Okay, so I can just go to the comment and tags tab, add the word, the special keyword that I need to focus on. Let's click on OK, and I get a view with only 50 words. Okay, as you can see here on the right, I have comments, and that comment is to translate. Everything else gets ignored. Okay, I was saying that views are very similar to filters, and let me show you that you can do many of these things with filters as well. So on the go, basically, when you're translating, you can just write here the word that you want to filter by. You can say like skill, and then everything else gets ignored. And something that is pretty nice about MemoQ is that you can click on the cogwheel here, and you can, well, this is pretty new, clear previous filter results. Before, you needed to remove the filter with this magnifier icon. Right now, it just, the new filter replaces the old one. But if you want to stack different filters, you can do that by clicking on this. Okay. And another nice thing is that you can include comments, include context IDs. This is for localization only, okay, usually. And you can even exclude source and target. So right now I can write to translate up here, and I will only get those segments that have the to translate keyword. And just like that, I can also, let's see, filter by skill description ID, okay? So I can do this, and I will only see those strings that have the skill desk keyword in the ID, okay? Again, very useful for video game localization. Okay, well, those were my suggestions regarding views and filters. Make sure you give them a try. And now, to conclude, let's talk a little bit about regular expressions, and we're getting into nerd territory here. I know that some of you may get lost right now, but don't worry about it. Maybe this won't be super useful for you, but I'll try to make it useful. So bear with me. One thing, I won't be explaining regex or regular expressions, okay? If you want that, there's actually a webinar in Spanish, a great webinar in Spanish about regular expressions that you can look for in YouTube. That is just an introduction, and let us know if you want something like that in English as well. But regular expressions are basically an advanced way of finding patterns in your texts, okay? And you can do some crazy things with them. I'm not an advanced user of regex at all. I'm barely a basic user, but even with that, I've used them a lot, and I've done some really nice things and saved some time using regex. So I love them. Whenever I have the chance of using them, I use them, okay? So fortunately for you, you can use regex in MemoQ without even knowing regex at all, yeah, because MemoQ some time ago included a regex assistant feature, and I'll show that to you and how you can actually use it right now in your translations. So let's open the sample file. Disclaimer, okay, this will get advanced and a bit weird, but bear with me. So let's say that you have a big translation with lots of dates like this, okay? And suddenly, right at the end, your client approaches you and says, hey, we need to change the formatting. That is not the right one. We need something else. Okay, if you have one or two instances of dates, you can just change them manually. But if you have hundreds, then it will be a pain in the neck, okay? So that's, for those kinds of things, you can use regex, okay? And that's super useful. So let me show you. To do this, we will use find and replace. So let's open the find and replace menu with Control H. I tapped it twice, and we get it here. Let me move my screen just a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. Good. Here we have MemoQ on the right and find and replace on the left. So the first thing I have to do is just enable regex mode. Okay, we're getting into advanced mode. When we're in regex mode, we get this new RX button. If you don't see this in your MemoQ version, maybe you have an outdated version and you can upgrade, okay? So let's click on the regex assistant. And this is here to make our lives easier. We have three very important features here. First of all, we have a regex cheat sheet, okay? This is just a reminder of the different symbols that we can use to identify these patterns, okay? That's number one. Then we have a built-in regex library, which comes with MemoQ by default, that is actually doing some of these things that I'll show you today, okay? Some find and replace magic that you can do, let's say it that way. And then you also have a testing ground, which is really necessary for any kind of regex that you want to try out, okay? So in the testing ground, what I'm actually going to do is paste the expression that I want MemoQ to find, and then it will show me how it will be replaced based on the rules that I write down here, okay? So this first example is actually easy because it's included in the regex library, okay? That's why I included it, but you have several date conversion regex rules. I will pick the first one, okay, which is basically saying, okay, I want to replace dates that are written with periods and in this order, okay, year, month, and day, I want to replace that and change it with day, month, and year divided by dashes, okay, separated by dashes. This is the rule. I told you that it would get weird. I don't even understand this. Yeah, this is way more advanced than what I would do. But as you can see in the testing ground, the original phrase that I had got replaced by the phrase that I want, okay, the format that I want. So if the testing ground worked, I can just insert my regex to the advanced find and replace window. I will click here. I get all the chunk of text in here, and I can just click on replace all. Good. And as you can see, my date got fixed. Okay. I used to have this format and now it was changed. Okay. I know if this is the first time you see this, it's a little bit like magic and a little bit confusing, but believe me, it's pretty useful. Some other regex examples that we have. Let's see. This is, of course, way too much, but double white spaces. Yeah, everyone has some every once in a while. And in this case, this person was probably a bit drunk and had like, how many? 4 or 5 white spaces. You could solve this with a simple find and replace. But if you have more than 2 white spaces, you would have to repeat that search once, twice, or 3 times, okay? However, if you're using regex, you can also go to the library and you can find, replace 2 or more white spaces with only 1 space, okay? You click here. We don't even need the testing ground for this because we know what it does. And let's just insert the regex. Let's replace all. And bam, my white spaces were removed and I only have 1 now, okay? You have to be a bit careful with regex because maybe you're creating a rule that is a little bit lazy. It's called like that. And then you get some unwanted results, okay? That's why you need to learn a little bit about this. But fortunately, the regex library is done by professionals, not by myself. So the rules are very precise, okay? You will make sure that you don't get extra replacements, for example. Let's see. This is something that happens to me a lot when I'm working really hard and in a rush. For some reason, I repeat some words, especially the preposition de in Spanish. I don't know, it just happens. So to identify that, of course, you can use QA. MemoQ's QA will tell you that you're repeating words, but hey, we want to use regex. So you also have a regex rule to remove repeated words. Okay, I'm just showing you examples of the things that you can do. And let's add this to your testing ground. Here we have has, and it gets replaced, okay, by 1 single has. Let's add this here. Let's replace all. And suddenly the extra has was removed, okay? Some other examples that we have here. Replacing straight quotes with the curly ones, okay, with smart quotes. This is something that sometimes we need to do, and doing this manually, again, is a pain. So you can do this with MemoQ, okay? Again, this is in the library. Let me open this, and here you have. Replace straight quotes with smart quotes. Let me put this into the testing ground to make sure that it works. And yeah, it should work. Let's insert this here. Let's replace all. And our quotation marks were changed and replaced, okay? So sorry if you're a bit lost right now. This is just to inspire you, you know, to do some research on regex, to learn about it. We have documentation on regex as well. So you can Google MemoQ regular expressions and you will find some answers. And now let me show you just 2 more rules that I will create myself live, okay? Disclaimer, if you are a regex pro, I'm sure that these rules will probably look a bit wrong to you, but I'm just trying to show you that it can be actually quite easy to create some rules, okay? So let me add this to my testing ground. I see there are some comments. Hopefully you're not like insulting me or something. Let me add this to the testing ground, okay? And I don't have a built-in regex rule in the library for this. What I want to do here is basically separate the number from the symbol, okay, or the unit, because that's how we do it in Spanish. So I need to find a pattern here, and then I need to replace that pattern with an updated rule, basically. So the pattern is that we first have numbers. It can be one number, 2, 3, or many numbers. So I'm going to use the regex cheat sheet, and I will find any digit. Okay, I have two options for digits. Let's use the second one, any digit. I said that I can have one or more numbers. So I'm going to go here again in the cheat sheet to the occurrences, and this will happen one or more time. I need at least one number. Okay, so to do that, we add the plus symbol. Okay. After this, we have the units themselves. So at this point, I'm going to be very precise, and I'm just going to write the symbols themselves. This is something that you can do. Of course, I can come up with a rule, but I'd rather be sure that I don't get anything wrong here. So I'm just going to write kilometers, add a pipe to separate the options. Then I'm getting minutes, or I can have a percentage symbol, okay? As you can see, my testing ground is saying, hey, this is working, okay? You're getting highlighted results. However, I need to add one single thing. I need to divide these two parts in groups. The second group is already isolated, okay, in parentheses, in brackets, but I need brackets for the first one as well, okay? Why? Because when I replace, my rule will actually tell MemoQ, hey, you need to have the first group, okay, group number 1, this is how you express your groups. Then you need a space. In this case, I will add a non-breaking space. And now you need to include group number 2, okay? And you can see in my testing ground that the rule seems to be working, okay? I could even add this rule to my regex library if this is something that you'll be using over and over again, and you can keep it there, okay? However, I'll just insert this here. I'll replace all. Oh, no, sorry, that wasn't the right option. It was just find next. Yeah, replace all. Yeah, that's it. I replaced every single instance of the lack of space, right? I've added the space. And finally, to close this webinar, let's create a new rule to swap number and currency, okay? I want it around. I want to have the currency first, followed by a non-breaking space and a number, okay? Let's paste this here in my testing ground, and let's start. So the first part is actually the same, okay? I need to find numbers, okay? That's perfect. Then I need to find an example, but in regex, a space, sorry, I said example, right? Yeah, the space. In regex, spaces are displayed this way with a bar and an S, okay? This is how you find spaces. And finally, let's create a new group. We need to find uppercase letters, okay? So we have any uppercase letter of the English alphabet, but they need to appear 3 times. So let's go to the quantifiers down here, and we have this option. It occurs exactly n times, okay? So let's change this to 3. Let's close the group, and we can see that our testing ground is giving me a positive result. And what I need to do now is move the groups around. So I have group number 2 first, then I'll have a non-breaking space, and then I'll have group number 1. Okay, perfect. This seems to be working. Let me get this into my find and replace window. Replace all. Sorry, I didn't include this in my target. Replace all, and now, yes, I got the result that I wanted, okay? The currency, non-breaking space, and the numbers. Okay, and with regex, I think it's time to conclude this webinar. I see there are lots of questions and comments. Let's have a look at those and see if I can reply to some of those. Yeah, please, if you added any questions to the chat, please copy and paste them into the Q&A pane, okay? Because there are some other comments and I'm probably going to overlook some of those questions. And apart from that, we can export the Q&A. And if I don't have enough time to answer live, or I don't know the answers, yeah, because I don't know everything about MemoQ, then we can reply in written form as well, okay? Very good. I don't know, guys, if you just want me to have a look at the questions, or you want to pick some, and then we can reply the others in written form because it's already a bit late. You tell me.
Hi, Santi. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation. I think it was really, really great, and you showed us a lot of things. So thank you again for that. We have lots of questions, and I know much less about MemoQ than you do. The only thing I would like to ask you to please press the do not press button. We had a question that what it does and why we have that there. That's for sure something that we want to answer there.
Are you sure I should do that?
Maybe. I don't know what it does. I never pressed it.
Okay, so if something explodes right now, where is it? Oh, no,
Options, I think.
No. Yeah, it is. It's here. It's here. Sorry. Do not press this button again. I don't know if you heard that, but there is even a sound cue that you get when you press it.
Yeah, so everyone
don't be rebellious, people. Don't press it. You will make MemoQ people angry if you do.
So back to normal questions, I think, yes, it's better if you check the questions because we have 23 of them.
Okay.
They are really, really great questions. So
good. So Anke actually found localization mistake in German. I think you can probably send that, in written form, and we can probably fix it. Feel free to write to me if you have some suggestions like that. You have my email address. Where was it? It's Santiago. Here it is. Yeah, you can send that to me, and I'll make sure that I send it to the right person so that they can fix it. Thank you for the nice comments actually in the chat. I'm very happy to see that you enjoy this. So let's see. Good. Romanian dates to Dutch dates. Can this be done automatically without flagging an error? Yeah, I mean, you can create another translation rule again to do this. You can Google auto translation rules in MemoQ, and you will get some tutorials there and some documentation. But yeah, you can definitely do this with an auto translation rule. Is there a way in the Concordance tab to automatically copy the search terms to the clipboards to find them somewhere else? Example, in Google or in a personal glossary, if Concordance gives no results? This is a nice question. That's not possible right now, at least not that I'm aware of. So what I usually do, because I have that problem as well, before doing the concordance search, I quickly press Control-C and then I press Control-K so that I already copied the term myself to be able to look it up somewhere else. Or you can, what I usually do as well, I changed the shortcut for web search. So I can do Control-K for concordance search, and then I can do Control-Shift-K for web search. Yeah, so let's see if it works right now. Yeah, for some reason it's not working, but yeah, I got an error for some reason, but that's something that I suggest you do. Let me show you because it's loading here. Yeah, that's something that you can do. Just change the shortcut. Of course, we need to get MemoQ errors during a MemoQ webinar. Well, doesn't really matter. That's something that you can do to quickly, look both in concordance searches and in Google. Good. Where do you create an auto translation rule, Isabel? Good question. You can go to your settings if you are working in a project. Yeah. And you have the auto translation rules here. Yeah, this is the one. Or you can also find this in your resource console. Okay, resource console, you have, where is it? Here, auto translation rules. Okay, right there, you can jump into it and you will find the option to create one. Good. Shortcut for quick add term, that is Control-Q. Okay, Control-Q. That's how it works. How do you find if a term is forbidden? To define a forbidden term, when you add a new term, you need to use the regular option, not the quick add term. Okay, so you add a term regularly with the button or Control-E. You add translation like programa, and you go to usage down here to the usage tab, and you set it as forbidden. Okay, good. So Julie, can you edit a client's term base for Fuzzy QA, or is it just your own? No, you cannot change the clients if you're working with an agency, for example, but of course you can ask your client to make that change, because the project manager doesn't really know what works in every single language. So you can say, hey, can you please change Spanish, for example, into Fuzzy, because it will help us a lot. Yeah. Michaela, what is a pipe? Yeah, the pipe is this symbol. Let me show it to you. This vertical symbol. You can Google it and you will get it, or you can use it just by pressing Control-Alt-1, at least in my my keyboard, which is in Spanish. Yeah, Control-Alt-1. That's how I use it. So what's the difference between the pipe and the asterisk? Okay, well, the pipe, when you add a term into a term base and you use a pipe, the result that you see is actually the whole term. You don't only see one single part of it. You see the whole thing. But MemoQ internally, like in the backend, will only check up to the point in which you added the pipe. Okay, so if you want to use an asterisk, then if you want to use it the way I use it, you will just write down part of the word, and in the result, you will only see part of the translation. Okay, so yeah, they are quite similar, but not really. Yeah, the asterisk can only be used at the end of a word. Okay, only at the end. George, what if I put the asterisk before the term? Will it be recognized as a prefix? No, you cannot use asterisk at the beginning of words. They just work at the end. Julie, thanks a lot for your nice comment. Very useful tips. Thanks a lot. Let's see. Alfonso has a very nice question. Are there any advantages in terms of leveraging matches accurately, accuracy in concordance search when saving project files in DiveDocs plus in the TM as units instead of just in the TM? I watched a MemoQ webinar some time ago when they said something about this, but apart from the in-context view of the segment, I still don't understand if it's benefiting matches accuracy in any way. To my eyes, the only use of LiveDocs is aligning non-bilingual files from outside MemoQ, but I'm still not sure. Well, Alfonso is mentioning a webinar that is completely focused on LiveDocs, so I invite everyone to watch that because it's pretty nice. And yeah, I understand your question. I wouldn't have both, like LiveDocs and TM. I would probably have one only. Like if you like LiveDocs, just use LiveDocs. If you like TMs, just use TMs. The benefit about LiveDocs is that you also keep the text for visual context. So you keep the text flow actually. So if you have 10 strings translated, you can open the LiveDocs and you will see the 10 strings in context, plus the comments that were originally left in that translation. That can be useful, plus the character limitation, as I already mentioned. But yeah, I can understand that you don't really see the difference or the benefit. But yeah, of course, the main use is for alignment, but you can do many things with that. As I said, you can also add any kind of file, and you can choose whether you want it converted into MemoQ format or not. Yeah, so you can have like a text that is only in the target language. You can add it into LiveDocs. That will get converted into MemoQ format, and then you can even do a concordant search of the target text only, and you can see like terminology used in context or even just examples. If you upgrade it to MemoQ 9.12, right now, when you do a concordance search in the target language, you have this option that will be automatically selected, and you can do target searches instead of source searches. So yeah, there are some advantages to LiveDocs. I encourage you to play around with it a little bit. Can we filter by source and target content using tags in the view, like the MemoQ tags syntax? I've never actually tried that with views, so it would be something nice to try it out. So I cannot give you a reply right now, but I'll do some research and let you know. How can we get the views back into the document? That's another question. No, when you're translating in a view and then you close the view and open the document again, the original one, you will get all the translations there. So you don't need to send things to the original text or files, okay? Gianluca, after creating the view 4 and adding then I noticed that there was a segment that showed the word other because it contains the word the. Could that be narrowed down with quotes? Good question. I've never really tried that. We can try it right now in a minute, and if I don't find an answer, I can test it. So let's test this for a minute. Advanced. Let's see if this works like this or not. Test, where is it? Apparently it didn't really work because we're getting this as well. But that's a good question and suggestion. Okay, so I'll try to check later if that's something that can be done. Otherwise, you can suggest it in the users portal, yeah, which is portal that we have in which users can suggest some things. I know here that Alfonso is a very good suggester of improvements. So yeah, thanks for asking all these things. Where is the regex assistant in the interface? Okay, maybe I went too fast with that. When you open the find and replace window like this, first you need to enable the regex mode. Okay, you need to click on this. Once you click on this, you just find the RX button. Okay, that is the one, and you will find the RX button in many places in MemoQ, not just here, okay? So whenever you see that, it means that the assistant is available, okay? How do you skip correct repetitions? Well, good question. You know, in this case, he's talking about had, for example. That is a correct repetition of words. In that case, that's what I was saying about regex. You need to be careful. That's why if I'm doing like a regex find and replace, I probably wouldn't use replace all freely, okay? Because I know that there may be exceptions. So I usually go one by one, okay? I go to the next one, check, replace, check, replace, check, replace. Unless I'm completely sure that I won't have any unwanted changes, I don't usually use replace all. Renata is asking, what does smart quote mean here? Is the straight quote automatically replaced by the target language's quotes? Yeah, that's something that you can set up when you use autocorrect, okay, settings. But sometimes you used one type of quote and then you need some other type of quote. I mean, in Spanish, we have the lower quotes, you know, that look like this as well. Maybe you didn't use them and suddenly you need to start using them. So yeah, smart quote in this case means the curly ones, not the straight ones, okay? Okay, I've already showed how to start the regex. Let's see if I understand this from Asu. Nice to see you here. For regex, do you have to find a specific example in target of the repeated thing to insert it in the testing ground on every single project, or once you have added the rule to the regex library, it works every time? You don't really need to use the testing ground if you don't want. But yeah, I mean, once you add it to the regex library, it will be saved there. So right here, I have a separate number from symbol. I just click on it, I get my rule, and I can use it. Yeah, so you don't even need to add anything to the testing ground. The testing ground is just something for you to practice. Yeah, Alfonso, I'm happy to hear that you finally understood a little bit more about LiveDocs. Amal, how can I stop numbers from being written across sentences when a space is used instead of a comma? I don't think I fully understand your question, so feel free to send it again, but you can play around with the auto pick options. For instance, I actually didn't show that, but you can go to the translation tab, you can go to translation settings, and you can go to predictive typing and auto pick, right here. And here you have the auto pick options, and you can play around with all the settings here. Good, let's move on. Alessandro, does the question mark count as a wildcard in MemoQ as well? No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, in concordance search and in term basis, you need to use the asterisk or the pipe, actually. Okay, I think I managed to reply lots of questions. Some others I need to do some research on because I don't really know the precise answer. But I think we've had enough information for today, right? What do you think? Okay. Yeah, then if there are no more questions, yeah, you've had enough. I think we can call it a day. And well, I want to thank everyone here for listening, for being so active in the questions in the chat. And of course, I want to thank MemoQ and my marketing colleagues for inviting me for this webinar. I've had a blast. So hopefully we'll have another one in the future. Well,
thank you very much, Santi. It was really an amazing webinar. Thank you for the lots of questions. We will send out a Q&A sheet and the recording of the session as well. So thank you for joining, and hope we can see you in the next event as well. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.